Imagine you can foresee future tragedies. Will it be a blessing, or will you end up helplessly seeing everyone dying? William Dawes Elementary School has been looking forward to their official opening ceremony. To make this day special, they asked the students for creative activity ideas. A shy, introverted student, Lucinda Embry, gave the idea of a time capsule, and everyone loved it. The teacher asked the students to draw pictures of the future as they imagine it. The pictures will be stored in a metal capsule that will open 50 years later. Instead of drawing pictures like the other students, Lucinda wrote down numbers on both sides of a paper. Before she could finish, the teacher took away her paper as they were running late. All the envelopes with students' names are put in the capsule and stored underground. After the ceremony, Lucinda goes missing and the whole school staff searches for her. Finally, her homeroom teacher, Miss Taylor, finds Lucinda hidden in the closet. Her nails were bleeding because of the continuous scratching on the door. 50 years later, Caleb Koestler reads in the same school. His father, John Koestler, is a talented astrophysics teacher who often shocks his students with his knowledge about space theories. His friend Phil Beckman questions his heavy lectures, but John doesn't care. Phil is actually worried seeing John indulged in work since the death of his wife, but John wants to bring up his son alone. He suddenly remembers Caleb's school ceremony and rushes to see his performance. The school arranged a ceremony to open the time capsule that was buried 50 years ago. Miss Taylor is also there to see the big moment. The capsule is opened and the envelopes are distributed among the students. Caleb gets Lucinda's letter and feels confused over the random numbers written all over the paper. Considering it as some kind of puzzle, Caleb brings it home. John advises him to return it to the school as soon as possible and go to bed early. Caleb complains about hearing weird noises, but John assumes that the hearing aid must be misfunctioning. Later that night, when John checks on his son, he finds the little boy watching the video of his late mother. This makes John emotional as well, and he starts drinking to overcome the grief. He accidentally puts the beer glass over Lucinda's letter. While trying to clean it up, John notices a familiar set of numbers. He immediately searches for it on the internet, and it turns out to be the date of a huge tragedy that killed many people. John's interest grows. He grabs the letter and writes down all the number sequences on a whiteboard. He keeps researching all night and shares his findings with Phil. The numbers are mostly dates followed by the number of people who died on that date. According to the pattern, 3 more tragedies are going to occur, and the next one is tomorrow that's going to kill 81 people. Phil believes it's just a coincidence, and John is just assuming things. Moreover, there are some numbers between the dates that have no explanation. Despite Phil's reaction, John keeps researching and goes to meet Miss Taylor. She recalls the whole event when the capsule was buried. Lucinda had always been a quiet child, and understanding her thoughts wasn't easy. Moreover, she died several years ago, so John can't ask her anything personally. After returning home, John also tries to find more information about the capsule, but the school refuses to cooperate. John suddenly notices Caleb talking to a stranger outside the house. The creepy men gave Caleb a black stone and went away. John gets back on his research, but his sister Grace interrupts him. She came over to ask John to spend some time with their parents, but John never had a good understanding with his family. His father is a pastor, and his visions contradict John's scientific theories. After Grace leaves, John sits down to watch the news all night to know if his theory is right or not. He sleeps quite late and wakes up at noon when Caleb calls his dad to pick him up from the school. John rushes towards the school, but it's raining heavily and traffic is jammed. John calls Phil to apologize for teasing him with his stupid theories and agrees to have lunch together someday. John suddenly notices the geographical coordinates mentioned on the GPS. These are the numbers written beside the dates in Lucinda's letter. John gets out of his car to check if an incident really happened at this location or not. The police were informing him that it's just a minor accident, but then a huge airplane crashed right beside them. John rushes to help as many people as possible, but police advise him to move back. John returns home with an awkward mood. His son asks what happened, but John advises him to just go to bed. Later, he informs Phil about everything, and he advises John to think about his son and stay away from this. Even if John knows that 2 more disasters are going to happen, he still can't stop them. However, he can stay away from that location and save himself. Little did he know he couldn't run away from his fate. Caleb is also experiencing weird phenomena like strange noises and creepy nightmares. The next day, while picking up Caleb, John notices Lucinda's daughter Diana and granddaughter Abby. John follows them and tries to build a friendship. As Diana gets comfortable with him, John asks about Lucinda and briefly talks about her predictions. Diana gets creeped out and warns John not to follow her again. The next incident is just a day away. John calls the police and warns them to evacuate the location. They don't take him seriously, so he drives to the location himself. He notices a suspicious guy and assumes him as a terrorist. John runs after him and gets on the train. The police reach there too, but the man turns out to be just a book thief. The incident isn't a bomb blast, but a subway accident. The fellow train gets off its track and crashes at the station, killing numerous people. John failed again to save others or stop the incident. On reaching home, he gets a call from Diana, who invites him to check out her mother's house. On the way, John tells Diana about his wife's death in a hotel fire. Though he loved her dearly, he didn't feel that she was in danger. Since then, John thought everything happened randomly, but now he found Lucinda's letter. If he had it earlier, he may have saved his wife, but he'll try his best to save the rest of his loved ones. Lucinda's house lies in the middle of the forest. They leave the kids in the car and get inside the old house. The date of the third incident doesn't have a location, and in place of the number of deaths, 2 as are written. Diana's mother always used to mention this date and told Diana that she's going to die on this date. Her father declared Lucinda mentally ill and took away Diana. After a few years, Lucinda died of an overdose. John doesn't find anything special in the house and decides to leave. Suddenly, he stumbles over a stone. It's similar to the one Caleb received from a stranger. There are a bunch of them under Lucinda's bed. When John turns over the bed, he finds the words "everyone else" scratched under it. This is what EE meant. Caleb starts pressing the car horn, and John and Diana rush outside. The kids tell them a bunch of creepy men came for them. John notices someone in the forest and rushes after him with his gun. It's a pale-skinned guy with lifeless eyes. He opens his mouth to create a bright light that blinds John's vision. After getting back in senses, John drives back home. Diana and Abby stay at his place for tonight. The next morning, John asks Abby about her preferred breakfast, but then he notices what the little girl is drawing. It's a spiritual painting with a bright sun. It seems like a worthy sign. John guesses what it means and rushes to his workplace. He believes that the last date doesn't have a location because it's going to affect the whole world. John opens his research about heat flares and realizes that a huge solar flare is going to reach Earth in just a day. The government and higher authorities know about it, but they are hiding it away from the public to keep them calm. The heat flare will destroy all the living beings. There's no escape. Diana refuses to give up and suggests hiding inside the caves to protect themselves from the heat waves. John agrees, as he doesn't have any other option either. He instructs Diana and the kids to grab some clothes and food and get inside the car. He also calls his dad and regrets not talking to him for years. He suggests they move to a safe place, but his dad refuses, saying that no one can run away from death. John sits down and finally opens the birthday gift his wife bought for him. It's a necklace with their picture and a promise to always stay together. John wears the necklace and gets upstairs to bring Caleb. The kid is quietly sitting down on the study table and writing numbers on a sheet. When John snatches the pen and paper, Caleb starts scratching the numbers on the table. John calls his son back to reality and they get inside the car. But John heads to the school instead of the caves. Caleb's behavior reminded John that Lucinda was interrupted during her writing and found scratching on the door. She must have written something there. John gets to the closet, but the door is painted multiple times. He breaks the door and carries it home to remove the paint. Diana doesn't understand what he's doing and panics to save the kids. She takes them to her own car and drives away. It's already midnight. Diana stops at a gas station and hears the emergency broadcast about the heat flares. Meanwhile, Caleb gets out of the car and calls his dad. Diana takes the phone and asks John to follow them. But John has found the location Lucinda mentioned. It's her forest house. John believes this time it's not the incident location, but the only place that will be safe. The caves are useless too, as the heat will penetrate deep inside the earth crust. Diana breaks down in helplessness. She turns back to check on the kids, but they are taken away by those creepy men from before. Diana gets in a stranger's car and drives after the kids. In a rush, she collides with a truck and gets severely injured. John comes there looking for Diana and kids, but Diana is already dead, and the kids are missing. He finds the same stone in the car Diana was driving and rushes to Lucinda's house. He goes deep in the forest where the ground is covered with the same black stones. John finds Caleb and Abby holding rabbits while the creepy guys are standing behind them. They have come to take the kids. Suddenly, the sky tears apart and an arc descends. Caleb wants to take his dad along with him, but the creepy guy refuses. Only Caleb can hear him and tells John that only the chosen ones will be taken away who have been hearing calls in their heads. They will make a new start of life. John understands the situation and advises Caleb to be brave and go without him. The creepy guys are actually angels who are picking up innocent kids from the earth before the tragedy destroys the planet. John accepts fate and drives back to the city. Everyone there is fighting over food and resources like selfish idiots. The same thing humans do in any pandemic. John ignores them all and stops at his parents' house. He hugs them warmly and waits for his death. A huge solar flare hits the Earth and burns down each and every living being, while Caleb, Abby, and the other chosen ones land in a paradise and walk towards the Tree of Life. No matter how hard we try or how precise we predict, no one can run away from his death.